broadcasting across the United States. Here's Hank Hanegraaff.
Thank you very much, Randy. You know, I've always wanted to teach through the Bible, and quite frankly, I've never done that. I've answered questions on the Bible Answer Man broadcast, and my wife kept telling me to do this, as I mentioned a few videos ago or a few programs ago. And I suppose at age 70, it's about time. So what I'm going to do right now is just read a little bit of Matthew chapter 2. We've gone through Matthew chapter 1, and then I'll start to break down what's going on in this magnificent chapter of God's holy word. So here's what Matthew writes in Matthew chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, and that in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem was troubled with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and the scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go, search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also." When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. When they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way.
Access more than 1,500 free articles on Christianity, cults, and aberrant religious teaching. Go to equip.org or click on the eye above.
For now, I want to make an important distinction between predictive prophecy and typological prophecy. So in chapter 1 of Matthew, we encountered the virgin birth prophecy, which is a typological prophecy. And here in chapter 2, we encounter what is known as a predictive prophecy. Predictive prophecy is fairly straightforward. When Herod asked the chief priests and the teachers of the law where Jesus Christ was going to be born, they replied, "In Bethlehem, for that's what the prophet has written." As such, Micah 5:2 is a predictive prophecy directly and specifically fulfilled with the birth of Christ in Bethlehem, as chronicled here in Matthew 2:5. Typological prophecy is somewhat more complex. When Matthew writes, all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet, the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call his name Immanuel, which means God with us. He's speaking of typological rather than predictive fulfillment. So what is typology? A type is a person, an event, or an institution in redemptive history that prefigures a corresponding but greater reality. And the greater reality in which it finds fulfillment is referred to as an antitype. A type, in this case, the case at hand, is a historical person that prefigures the yet future coming of Jesus Christ the Messiah. So here's what happened in the context of Isaiah's prophecy in chapter 7, verse 14. Actually, that whole prophecy is fulfilled with Ahaz, who is the monarch of a tiny kingdom known as Judah. You're familiar with that from the Old Testament. Judah is in mortal terror of two kings that are plotting his destruction. So Isaiah is exhorting Ahaz not to lose heart. Why? Because these two kings, he says, are going to come to ruin. And God provides Ahaz with a sign that guarantees that the two kings would actually be destroyed. And here's the sign. The virgin, he says, will be with child and will give birth to a son, and they will call him Immanuel. And he says, before the boy or the son knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread is going to be laid waste. Well, what God promises always comes to pass. Isaiah went to the prophetess. She conceived. She gave birth to a son. And before the son knew how to reject the wrong and choose the right, Syria and Samaria were laid waste by superior Assyrian forces.
Listen to the most interesting, informative, and inspirational people on the planet. The Hank Unplugged podcast. Click on the eye above.
Well, as a consequence of sin, the salvation that Ahaz experienced was only temporary. If you look at history, Ahaz was reduced to a mere puppet king, his every move controlled by the evil Assyrian Empire. But God was not done with the people of the promise. 700 years after faithless Ahaz, Matthew saw the temporary salvation of Judah as a type of the eternal salvation the people of God would experience through Jesus Christ. And though Isaiah's wife did not give birth as a virgin, Mary most certainly did. Well, allow me to make one more point before I move on. Even apart from the magnificence of typological fulfillment, belief in the virgin birth of Jesus is based on faith, but it's never blind faith. I say that because miracles such as the virgin birth are not only possible, they're necessary to make sense of the universe in which we live. The origin of life, information in the genetic code, irreducible complexity in biological systems, as well as the phenomenon of the human mind itself, pose intractable problems for purely natural explanation. And therefore, reason forces us to look beyond the natural world to a supernatural designer who miraculously intervenes in the affairs of his created handiwork. So if we accept the evidential basis for believing that an uncaused first cause created the universe, we should have no problem whatsoever opening our minds to the possibility of the typological fulfillment of Isaiah 7:14 in the virgin birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. Well, next time we're going to continue with Matthew chapter 2. We'll start with verse 13, and I'm going to talk about what this star was that we read about when I was going through this chapter. What is this star? Is this a natural phenomenon? Is this a supernatural phenomenon? What's going on here? How can a star lead Persian wise men all the way from the east to the west and then stop over the very place that Jesus Christ was born? It's an intriguing story. We'll pick that up on the next edition of the Bible Answer Man broadcast.